My name is Reggie White. I'm an alcoholic, and thank you so much, Raquel, for inviting me and Chris out to talk about God today. And that's what we're going to do. We're basically going to just talk about it. I've listened to some people. Last session was like Marty and Ralph and these guys, like it seems like spiritual giants to me. And I look at like my brother Ronald, who I put on a whole different spiritual plane, and some other people, and I'm a novice at this, but what I try to do is be as honest as I possibly can because I've been so dishonest so many times in my life. And so what I had a thought to do with me, I thought there was a couple of people I thought of to do this. First thought was Chris Finley here, Christy. And the other thought was Bob Razan. So it was between you two. And so we ended up with you, Chris. You're the first choice. And so you said yes, so I didn't have to go to Bob. And the way I thought that we might do this, maybe do a linear type thing, talk about is when we were first kids and where our first exposure to God. At least I had my first exposure as a kid. I'm not sure about you, but we're about to find out. And talk about what kind of God that was, and then go on further as to further in life when I start using, and then God there, and then, when I get to the fellowship, and then now, and I've had a really rocky time with this. So, but I want to hear about the wind. Like I had this Baptist upbringing, Chris, and you had I'm imagining a bit different because you Native American, and we always laugh and joke about the wind and whatever. So now I get to hear about what the wind is and stuff. Chris?
Hello everyone. My name is Chris and I'm an alcoholic. And thank you so much, Reggie, for asking me, my road dog, to be here with you tonight. And also thank you so much. So many of my really good friends are here, and thanks to you everyone and my sponsees, and thanks to everyone for coming. And for all the people who do service at this meeting. The funny thing is, Reggie, I was, my mom is Native, but she's not enrolled. And then, I grew up mostly with a lot of my life with my stepdad, and he was Catholic. So my first kind of exposure to religion was either like some kind of Christian religions or like, some Catholic religion, like we went to Catholic church sometimes too. And, both of my stepdad and my mom like drank a lot. So, and also I guess, so we didn't go to church very much. I don't think that was really their thing, because obviously you want to party on Saturday night, or maybe that was just me thinking about how I lived my life. But I was thinking about this because, we had talked about this on Monday, and I was having these really weird memories because, one of the things I found in AA is that I have this narrative of this idea of myself, which is my false self mostly, right? And so much of spiritual practice for me is really getting rid of a lot of those ideas, or just like letting myself, be more myself and get rid of some of that crap. And I was remembering, and my brother and I talk about this sometime, because, I grew up in the trailer park, so not a teepee, or we didn't have horses, anything like that. So we weren't like traditionally Native in those ways. Because I grew up my whole life off the reservation because my mom didn't want me to grow up on the reservation because of, there was a lot of, because she grew up on the reservation, and there's a lot of trouble that could be had on the reservation. And she wanted me to have a different kind of life, for her kids. But we used to go, there was this old lady who had this, and now I'm wondering, she probably was the same age as me now that I think about it. She had this like Bible study in her house. And she like would have these cookies and these Kool-Aid, And so my brother and I would go over there and we'd like sing these Bible, like she would teach us about the Bible, and we would sing like Bible songs and all this really weird stuff. And I was having those memories, and my brother and I were talking about like how much that meant to us, because one of the really cool things that happened there is we didn't get like molested or harmed, like, so that was really, there was no violence in her house. She was very kind to us. And that was one of the many memories I like forgot about, because I think even as a little girl, before I ever wanted a drink or to even escape who I was a seeker. I really felt that there was something else to life, but I never wanted to ever admit that, right? Until like recently, I was like, oh man, yeah, you were this cool punk rocker sort of for a while and a very unsmooth criminal, but there was, this like really deep desire to like connect to something. Um, and, we'd go to Bible camp and stuff like that so we could get away for the week. And my mom was probably like, cool, free childcare, and that was a lot of my upbringing. And then with my grandma, I would always take her to midnight mass, and on the reservation, they spoke in our native language. They burned sage. So they did do some more of those traditional kinds of things.
Nice. Okay.
And my and my grandma, so I'd always take her to midnight mass, and that was like one of the organized religion things I did, even when I was, in my using, and drinking.
Now I'm hearing a lot of religion. I didn't hear any God.
Right.
Tell me, was that how it was? A lot of religion and
It was absolutely that, but I know that there was something in my soul that was seeking God.
hmm,
I would never have been able to put my finger on that, but I wanted something else for myself. Or, like I wanted this connection in the universe. Um,
okay.
but I never even like really believed in God. It's not like I ever prayed to God or really felt guilty about God or anything like that though. So yeah.
Huh, okay. Because I always believed in God. You
Hmm.
know, we were in church from as far as I could remember because it was six of us and I'm number four out of six. I got to do what the older ones were doing. What Bill, Ralph, and Ronnie did, I did. And so we're all trailing the church. And my mom's super religious, right? She's all about God, all about spirituality, all about religion. And we were going, it was my grandfather's church, and we were going there, and then we're going to the other church. And the things that I remember is, man, I hate it. Because it's all day, and I'm a kid. And this is Baptist church. So I'm in church all day long and I'm too smart for my own good. And what I'm doing, I love to read. So I'm sitting around and I'm reading the Bible all the time, right? Especially when they're preaching and stuff. No, I'm doing that so that I don't have to pay attention to what's going on in church, right? So I'm reading the Bible and I'm getting ammunition so that I could argue. And I'm thinking and I'm looking at the preacher and he's got money and we don't. And why is that? I'm looking at all the inequities and stuff like that. And I'm watching people who get the Holy Ghost. See, in Baptist church, people get the Holy Ghost and stuff, and they start doing the Baptist dance and all that. And it's embarrassing to me. And that's the way I looked at it. But I was scared not to believe in God. See, because I believed in that heaven and hell version of God. So the thing was, I believed in God out of fear more than anything else. There was no love in that. And the praying stuff, um, I guess I didn't really know how to pray because I thought that you pray to God and God grants what, he gives you. But see, I still see that same thing even today all the time. People saying that, oh, God is good. That's why I remember we were I tell you about our 7 a.m. meeting all the time. And we were in that 7 a.m. meeting, and there were a couple of people in that 7 a.m. meeting, and they were talking about how their kids, one of them had a child who was born prematurely, and oh, I'm praying, and so God is good. God brought my baby through, and my baby lived. And the other girl was talking, and she talked about how she had her baby was so sick and didn't live, and and it was two of us in that meeting that our kids had died. And it's like, okay, so are you saying that God is good because my child lived? And then, so what's wrong with me? What's wrong with me and the other woman who knows? She might be in this meeting right now. And it's like, wait a minute. See, that was something I could never really, like justify in my mind. Like, okay, I didn't, like God is good or the devil is busy. And that was the way it seemed to go. But okay, so you early on, you loved the religious experience, but there was no God in
And I don't even think it was an experience. In fact, the way I should have answered your question, the second part of it was that I'm smart. I mean, in some ways, okay. Like, so I was always wanting, to think my way into something better, right? So I've always been a person of the mind, and if you're a person of the mind and you have all these painful things going on in your household and like all this like really heavy stuff going on in school, like being the only, one of the few people of color at school, being an out lesbian at school, like all of these very painful things, like, and everybody else in my family looked white except for me. So everybody always thought I was adopted. So I was always trying to find a way to make that better for myself. So I found that religion, I didn't really get how to apply that to my life. So I started developing a very rich fantasy world. It's really what I ended up doing. And so I had a very rich fantasy life where, all I did is like I got stuck in my books. I just read my books. I studied really hard. And I watched a lot of television, and that's kind of where it landed for me for a while. And that brought me some comfort, before I found and started using alcohol. So.
there. So first I used fiction and TV, which same stuff I did.
Right.
Okay. But you started like drinking and using a little before me, I think.
Right. I really wanted that drink at 9, but didn't take it till I was 12 because I was afraid. Because I saw what alcohol did to people in my family, and they were messy. So there were guns, there was violence, there was fists, like it was way out of control, and I just didn't want that, but I wanted to be soothed. I wanted to feel different. And finally at 12, my mom bought me my alcohol, and, it makes sense. That's what worked for her. So, and I drank it all, but I didn't really get hooked until I was 16.
So at what point, if at any, did you ever start? Did you ever have any thought about God at all, or looking for God, or wanting to have a God in your life, or fear of hell, or any? Because that was my main motivation. Anything like that?
I didn't care. So I mean, I was like, I was this really like deep, when I was 16, because I really thought I could get myself out of the trailer park and, like through studying, through getting scholarships, I wanted to be a tribal attorney. I had all these dreams and these hopes. And so I always thought I was going to do it. Because what I found with God and religion, I didn't really understand that, but I felt very powerful when I was angry, when I was self-seeking and being self-determining, like I am going to do this thing. And I was really obsessed with that. And so, yeah, so I guess that's how I would kind of go with that.
Nothing on the Native American stuff at all? Nothing in that area?
It was only later in my life, when my great auntie started telling me stories because, I would ask my grandma about it because my grandma is, Native and she wouldn't tell me anything because she went to boarding school. They beat it out of her. In fact, I didn't even realize she had gone to boarding school until, like Indian boarding school, until I was 19. She just let it slip out. And then I asked some follow-up questions, which she wouldn't answer, So I think, she was really afraid to talk about it. And I don't know how much she ended up knowing either, right? Because, she was the first generation to go to boarding school and like the only one. But from that generation on, there was sexual abuse, there was domestic violence, there was alcoholism and drug addiction in my family. And it's only been recently where that's kind of been like arrested, So, and I think in that, and it's slowing down. I think some of us have started to develop those spiritual practices, like through learning our language, and doing these other, and trying to practice ceremony and do other things. But that's like a newer thing,
That's it. That's yeah, because I saw something like that on one of those at the boarding school with the nuns and the priests and everybody were abusing and beating the Native American girls.
Yeah.
And it was pretty brutal. That's what your aunt did.
Yeah. And they both went to boarding school, but my aunt, she didn't, she kept practicing, her spiritual practices. In fact, she was a medicine woman of our tribe, and also a devout Catholic. Like,
Wow.
she saw no conflict there for her. And I love that, and so she cared about those things equally. Yeah.
Huh. And see, so this went on, you start drinking, you start doing all that. What happened when you went to school?
Well, I didn't end up going to college until I got sober. I was a year plus sober. All of those dreams just disappeared.
Up until you got sober, there was no thought of God.
Oh, I was, since I was an anarchist and I was Native, I always thought that God killed my people. So I was not about it. Like, that was my interpretation of that. And, cause, I'm very self-righteous,
Right,
I'm
right.
really
Yeah.
good. And you know how angry I am. So I'm really good at developing those kinds of narratives, which is not true. People did that. So.
Right. And it's funny, I come at a different angle on that because early on, one of the big things was I started to blame God for like Christmases and stuff like that because I'm fourth out of six kids. So by the time you get to me, there's nothing but hand me downs and things like that. And I'm always praying. See, those were where my prayers went basically on Christmas. Oh, let me get a bike or let me get skates or let me get something. And it's underwear and socks and then some board games for the whole family and stuff like that. And so I immediately gave up on prayer when I was young. But I remember when I went away to college, that's the trip where I first started drinking and using. I'm smoking some weed. I started smoking weed, and that was the main thing I was doing. I'm drinking and smoking weed, but the main thing was smoking weed. And somehow I got real spiritual. I remember it was my sophomore year in college. I had been drinking since my freshman year, but really it took off in my sophomore year where I came into my own. And I remember when I get high, I got real spiritual all of us. I remember telling the guys, because I had a crew, and I would tell them, I'm spiritual, not religious. And that's the trip. I literally would tell them that. And I said that what we're going to do is we're going to go around to every single church. And we got back in those days, guys, they used to have a thing called the yellow pages. It was sort of like Google, except it was on paper. And I looked up different denominations of churches in there, and we would pick a different one each Sunday. And we did this for about 10 straight Sundays, going to every denomination of church in the city of Redlands, California. We went to Pentecostal and Baptist and Methodist and Catholic, and we went to a temple, and we went to Lutheran. We went to, it was something, I remember one where you were just on your feet dancing the whole time. I forget about what that was. And it was because what I was doing, I dragged my whole crew with me, right? To all these different churches every Sunday because I said that I'm spiritual and I'm going to go explore and find the right one because I hated the Baptist. I hated the whole Baptist thing that I came up in, and I thought it was a fraud. I thought that it was a way to keep us down, to keep the people down. On that, we probably together on that. I thought religion was a way to keep us down and to keep us poor and to keep the poor people quiet. And I'm watching the guy, the pastor go in a new car seemed like that's what the way it felt to me. Maybe it wasn't even true, but it felt like he's in a new car and that they're telling us that our reward is in heaven. And my mother, who was the best person that I knew, and I'm looking at how she's marching her 6 boys around the church and it took a while before we even got a ride and stuff. Anyway, so I had a little bit of a rocky beginning with the whole thing. Then by that time, my life went off the rails, and so it was a whole different. Once I left college and I started smoking crack, everything went off the rails. There was no God involved in that, and no spirituality involved in that, and it was nothing but chaos. How did it work for you?
Yeah. I really just got totally lost, and that's what's so powerful about alcoholism is I was thinking, I'm like, there's no way I ever would have found a higher power if I would not have been an alcoholic. you know, I mean, who knows really, but I wouldn't have wanted that, because I would have wanted to live in my mind or whatever, do my own thing. But because of alcoholism, I completely just got rid of my dreams about going and being a lawyer for my tribe or going to college, period. And what's powerful is I didn't even think about why I wasn't, because, it was always resentment. I'm like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do that because of these people and, exactly because of, political things and all of that. And all the things that used to bring me joy as like a kid, I just let it all go for drinking,
But you were 22 when you came to AA, right?
Right.
Okay, so I come to AA at 22, and they start talking this diet stuff. How did that hit you?
Oh, it hit me very poorly. But it also was after this meeting where when they saw a newcomer, they had a first step meeting. And for the first time in my whole life, I realized I wasn't alone. And that these people had the same relationship with alcohol that I had, right? And I was like, ooh, okay. So you always talk about hope. So there was hope here. And then they told me that God can be a doorknob. And I was like, okay, I'll give this an approach,
How did that strike you? Yeah, how did that doorknob thing?
I was like, excellent. Because, I if they were going to tell me I had to believe in a specific deity or God or a religious path, I would have been out of here,
Okay.
Or who knows? I don't know. I might have been that desperate, but it's hard to say, right? You don't really. But yeah, the door, I was like, cool, a doorknob, I will give that a try. Because I guess some part of me knew that a doorknob could live a life better than I could at that point in time. So.
Okay. Because it's funny, when I came, I remember coming to AA and like you said, hope. Because all that time before I got here, I'm just drinking and using, and and it's pretty much no direction that I'm going in, and I'm a sharp guy, and I'm thinking, and I had a lot of things planned for me in my mind, and so all of a sudden I show up at the Harbor Light Center. And I'm showing up at 9604 South Figueroa, and I'm watching my brothers. That was always a big thing. I'm watching Ralph and Ronnie, and I'm hearing, I'm not stupid. They can talk about a power greater than themselves. I know they're talking about God, like in the big book, it talks about, and we agnostics, Bill talks about how, and then his face fell when he heard him talking about, my face definitely fell. Because I'm thinking, oh, shit, excuse me, I'm trying not to cuss here. But I'm thinking, oh, come on, man. This is, where's the Kool-Aid? Who's bringing, Kool-Aid's coming out from the back, you know, but I'm looking at Ronnie and Ralph, and they're going through with this. And I'm thinking there must be some scam here, and they figured it out. So I'm going to just lay in the cut. I'm going to wait, and I'm going to see. Because it was such a relief to see other people that I knew. I believed them because I saw Ronnie and Ralph. So I believed that these guys were really getting loaded. And now all of a sudden they're not getting loaded. And I'm watching how they're moving, and they're having fun. They're laughing. They're joking. This is not like church where people were, you know, where everybody's asking you for money. The plate's going around all the time, and they have all these rules, and you got to be good to get there. They didn't say you had to be good to get there. They just said the worse off you are when you get here, the better your chances are. And stuff like that really grabbed me. But then they talked about this God thing. And I was thinking, I knew it was a catch. I knew there was a catch. But then when they started Never Too Early Big Book Workshop, and we started actually going through the big book. See, it took about 10 months before we started going through steps and actually reading the big book. I was just going to meetings, and I'm staying sober, and I'm happy, right? And so I would talk God with my mouth, and I knew all the right things to say. God is everything, or he's not. Oh, God is everything. I don't have any clue. I'm just talking, right? I'm saying what you guys say because I want to impress some people, maybe impress a couple of women and catch you guys off guard and all that, all of that. And how did you feel when you start hearing all of God talk?
It made me really uncomfortable because I knew I wasn't ready to give my life up to a higher power, you know. But then I also realized I am utterly, fucked. So like there is no other thing for me to do. I am insane. I am sick. I am, dying. And actually, I didn't even know I was dying. I thought I actually kind of had it handled, but I was yellow. I was pissing the bed every morning, or during the night sometime. I was throwing up every morning. I was swollen because I was only drinking beer. And so some part of me, my sobriety stunt double I like to talk about, which I think is part of higher power for me, was like, maybe you should just try this, And but, I think you and I have had, similar experiences where I don't feel like I really believed in God until I was like 23 years sober. So, because I had to have my ass handed to me many times. And when I got sober, I started going to school. I got an AA degree, a BA degree, an MA degree, and a PhD. So I'm like, handled. Obviously, I'm getting, I'm good at this thing called life, but then there comes that time where where I get fired, my cousin gets killed, and, my car gets stolen, and just like, whew, okay, I don't have this handled. And the really, the beautiful thing about recovery is that, luckily we belong to the Never Too Early Big Book Workshop, and that you were just talking about. And I saw people and I heard people have an experience with a higher power that I really wanted. And, that I didn't know was possible or really even wanted, but I saw how their lives were because terrible things had happened to them and they were getting through it. And they weren't bitter, or maybe a little bitter for, but they were getting through it. And they were giving this thing to other people, And so I don't know. I don't think I really had like a conception of a higher power. I did service though, right? And I got into action.
Right.
And because that's just the kind of person that I am. And so there were things I was doing that was helping me get out of myself. But I didn't think about those as being God, Because
right. And it's funny because I'm doing a lot of the same things at the same time as you because life got really good for me really fast. And so I'm getting the job and I'm getting the girl and I'm getting the family and and life is showing up and life is really good. And when I'm being so successful early on, and really basically I'm giving lip service to God now because I know what it looks like at the podium and how it looks good. So yeah, I'm talking a real good game about God, right? And because you guys are talking a good game about God, so I know what to say. I know the right stuff to say to fit in. But and if you had put me to a lie detector test, I would not, I would have passed it and said, yeah, I believe in God. And yes, this is all God and all that. But really, I guess I thought it was all me because I was ashamed of praying. I never, ever was comfortable praying. Never, ever was comfortable doing that. I never would, I stopped praying. I stopped really, I never meditated, never did that stuff. I was thinking, why would I want to go around floating through life? I'm here, and I'm helping other people and I'm doing stuff like that. I'm thinking it's me. And it's so easy to sit around this program and it's so easy to start to believe that it's me. Despite my mouth doing all the talk about that it's God, it's easy to believe that it's me. And I get, so that's why, and we're going to talk about, I'm about to talk about my struggles, just like you. You had your all three in one day, lose the job, lose my cousin or nephew,
cousin.
your
Yeah,
cousin,
cousin. Yeah.
lose my cousin, lose my car, lose my job, all in the same week. And it's like my whole life crashing down around me. And that's when it really comes true. God is everything or God is nothing. That's when I got nothing else to fall back on. And see, it's easy to talk all that stuff about God is everything when everything is just going good. Oh yeah, God is everything. Until I don't have it. That's when it really, really comes whether God is everything or nothing. And it happened for me, of course, when I lost my daughter, when I lost Angie. And see, I've been out there and life has been going really, really good. And I stepped away from the program entirely. And I thought I was doing the right thing and doing good. I'm on my job and I got all these, I had so many employees and I got all these temps that I've hired and employees. And so I got these guys and I'm 12 stepping them as their boss. I've got employees, of course, who have struggles. And I'm like, oh, I'm working my program through them. And so I think that that's when I got to the place where I had nothing but answers. I had all answers and no questions, right? And that's a dangerous place to be in Alcoholics Anonymous when I'm not talking to a sponsor. I'm not going to meetings. I'm not talking to anybody who's going to give me any advice. Certainly not asking for any advice or anything. I got nothing but answers and I have no questions because I got money. I got a great job. I got this family and I got this. And then when my baby was ripped out of my life, I got nothing. And all of a sudden, and now I'm hating God. Matter of fact, fuck God. What kind of God would watch a little girl be tortured like that? And then a hospital just basically make a money decision. Oh no, she gets to die because it costs more for her to live than for her to die. And they make that decision. And I'm questioning everything about me, everything about my life. I'm questioning whether it's something I did wrong or would have done wrong. And I move away from God. And I hate God and I totally shut God out of my life. And I did that. You stayed, I left. You stayed and I left. And I was gone for 16 years and it's much harder. Well, maybe it's not much harder. Maybe that's what got me. When I finally came back, I got to where you were. Talk about how got the experience with God after that tragedy. Because I remember talking to you during those days.
Yeah, it's I think for me, like I got to have my ass handed to me and not have a plan anymore. Because I'm a planner. I always got an idea about what should happen next and all of what that should look like and all of that. And and then I was like, I have no idea what to do here. But the good thing is, and Steve L. from Nashville talks about this, like that moment where, the management tools can be helpful, or like the fact that my feet are trained. So I called Ralph, my sponsor, right? I called you. I shared about it at meetings. I showed it to my service commitments. And then eventually God was always there, but then I knew that my higher power had showed up, that I could feel it again, right? And that, I'm like, okay, well, maybe that's not the thing I'm supposed to do. So what am I supposed to do? And show me, because I thought I knew. I really did, and I didn't. And just like, not knowing anymore has been a very scary place for a person like me to be, but it has absolutely changed my whole relationship with everything in a really profound way, a better way.
Tell me what it was like before, like at the dark when it hit you that day, because I remember us talking about it. What it was like before then, and tell me about that bridge that got you to where you are, and then where you got.
Well, it was pretty dark before because I knew I was going to get fired from my job for years. I have an academic job, so it took years to get fired. And then when I got fired, it took years for my demotion to happen. So it was like there's a lot of time to really mess that up. And but the good thing is that I had worked in inventory with Ralph, and did a fifth step, and then I realized, oh, guess what? It's not the institution I'm at that's the problem. It turns out if you do 30% of your job, you might get fired, right? And I was like, well, I never got fired when I was out there, but I'm like, yeah, you were a waitress, you managed a bar, you worked at a gas station, like I didn't have a professional job. So it was actually really dark, Reggie, because, being a professor and being an auntie was my whole existence, right? When those things, my brother moved away because he lived in LA County, but then he moved back home to Washington State. And so I lost my identity as an auntie and then as a professor. And I was like, I have to be stripped bare, I think, of everything I think is important. Because those are like parts of my false self, right? Of my ego. And then I was like, okay, I guess it's just you and me, God. This is what it is, So it was already dark because I also have two coping tools in my toolbox left up to myself, which is suicide or drinking. That's all I got left to my own devices. And I've gotten to those. I've gotten so close to those places several times in my recovery. I am not I've wanted to drink so bad it hurt, but I didn't, which is also another, example of higher power because, an alcoholic is going to drink again, that's a possibility. Like, what happened with you. And I had done this amends with my mom and so these things were starting to transform in my life. And really change me and made me kind of see, oh, maybe my whole, this whole thing is not just being a professor. Maybe it's something else. So is that what you're getting at?
How did the thing with your mom, and how did you tell about how you actually came to start repairing that relationship with your mom?
Well, I'm going to do a reading on what Ralph thought. So Ralph, you can adjust this. I think Ralph thought it was ridiculous that at 20 some years sober that my mom was still at the top of my resentment list when I read my fifth step. So, when we were going through the amends, he's like, yeah, you got to make amends to your mom. And I'm like, well, I made amends to my mom, and, I apologized to her for messing up her house when I had parties, all the, the drinking stuff. And And my mom and I had always had a really rocky relationship. And so Ralph's like, and this is actually kind of that moment where things started to shift for me, I think, and to let like more God in, which is he's like, I want you to stop worrying about about having a shitty mom and start worrying about being a good daughter. That had never occurred to me. Like not one time in 20 plus years of sobriety that I think, oh, wait a minute, my role is being a good daughter, because I'm always thinking about what other people should be doing for me and how they need to follow my script, even though I didn't give it to them. So what happened is, Ralph's like, I want you to call her every week at the same time. And it turns out my mom was really pissed off at me for calling her a homophobe on Facebook. She wasn't answering my call. And let me tell you, I was like, so I went to Ralph and I was like, Ralph, she's not taking my calls, thinking I'd get the gold star. And he's like, don't put anybody outside of the realm of God. In fact, he talked about the relationship with you when you were out there and how, he didn't want to put you outside of the realm of God where something different could happen for you. And, or just that you're still in God's realm, even, as an alcoholic, practicing alcoholic addict. And he's like, and I had put my mom outside of the realm of God because in the world of Chris, like my mom and I do not have a relationship. In the realm of God, yes, we can. She answered the phone the next day, and we've been, I've been listening to her ever since. So, and so I think about that because that example of thinking about you, that, I was like, I felt the truth of that.
How many years ago was that when you started talking to him?
It was like 4 or 5 years now.
And when's the last time you talked to her?
How often?
When's the last time you talked?
Oh, last Friday. I talked to her every Friday at 2 p.m. Pacific time.
4 or 5 years.
For 2 hours, I listened to my mom. It's hard.
Right. And I just wanted to make sure to drive that point home about how important it is to keep doing the same thing that gets us here.
Right.
Will keep us here. And a lot of times it's easy to think, okay, I've done my part and I'm through with this. It's been important for me. It's been huge for me because when I was it got to the point where I gave up on everything. I gave up on living, and I wasn't prepared to commit suicide because I'd already tried that and it didn't work. I wasn't prepared to try to get sober again because I tried that so many times and it didn't work. And I wasn't prepared to try God again. I said, F God, and God won't work. It's shown that he doesn't work in my life. And it wasn't until I gave up on everything. Well, actually, I gave up on me. Fixing everything, that little door crack where God could step in and start pouring grace on me and bring me back. Like I like to say, thank God that God doesn't need my permission to work in my life because I was still cursing God on a daily basis and God reached down and touched me and changed my perception on everything. They talk about the psychic change in the big book and about mental rearrangements and stuff like that. And I know exactly what that means. I always call it looking at the world different. When I look at the world differently. And I had to do that about Angie, about my daughter. I had to look at everything entirely different in order to make it back to you guys. And I couldn't have done that on my own. That's what you talked about, the inventory process, and that's what happened with me. And thank God for Rico Cruz. Rico helped me so much through all that, and he was patient. Rico, and so, like I always talk about how I put God on the inventory and I worked through everything, and that's all true. But so much of what happened in order for me to reestablish a relationship with God was through, and Rico stressed that. He said about how I had to not only amends to people for what I'd done wrong, but I needed to forgive people because a lot of stuff was done wrong to me. When you become a crackhead after all these years, and I did it for 16 long years, you rub people the wrong way and people retaliate. And so things are done wrong and for a lot of things. I had to do a lot of forgiveness and then do amends to the same people that I had to forgive. And when I was doing that, that's where I started to see God. And that's where I started to have that spiritual experience. I could intellectually talk about it and see it and all that through the fourth step, but it was in practice. It was when I thought that my entire life was over and my whole world was over. And this is what brought me back to where I could look people in the eye again. I never thought I could look people in the eye again. I never thought I'd be where I could actually sit here and look you in the eye, Chris, or look some of the people that I really know and have hurt in the eye and know that I'm on equal ground with them. Thank God that I was able to get sober before my mom died. And not only be able, I thought about what you would tell me about with you and your mom, right? And I started talking to my mom. I started sitting with her. I would do that probably every couple of weeks. I would go in there and I would sit with her and we just talked. And I would actually treat her like a human being instead of a mother. And we would just talk about everything in the world and I would talk about all the stuff from when she was a kid in Mississippi growing up and all the things she endured and all the adventures she had, her jumping down and killing a cat, and then the cat comes back up to life, and she's terrible. She's running and how she got hit by lightning and her foot turned black and all that, her feet turned black, and the kids were calling her Black Lightning, and she hated that, and all kind of little crazy things. My mom told the story. And in other words, I was able to not only be there when she died, I was able to be there when she lived. And that was thanks to God and thanks to you guys. And that was how I started to see God. And that was how things started to get back for me. I don't know. We live a pretty see, when Chris and I have conversations, there's a lot of cussing in there. Y'all got to know that.
Yeah, this is very tame.
But we live a really, really good life.
We do.
We live a really good life. And it's due to that relationship with God, I'm able to have that relationship with Chris. And due to that relationship with Chris, I'm able to have that relationship with God. That we talk about any and everything, including the hard stuff about this. See, what does it look like today, having a God in your life like this?
Well, I'm a greedy person. And one of the things I was thinking about is, there's enough God for everyone. I never get jealous about other people's relationship with God, which is so weird, actually. I mean, because I know that there's just grace and love and care enough for everyone who wants to actually recognize it. Because I think it's already there. Just a lot of us, and I often don't see it that way. And so, and it makes me think about some of these spiritual principles, which I've been less likely to go for, which is, the trying to be neutral, because that's completely against everything in my character. So,
Right.
But I see the value in it because I meet people like Marilyn S., who is this amazing person. And, I see how she's able to give love and care to people and help people because of this neutrality,
Ronnie.
Oh yeah. And she's and it's not weakness, right? I've always thought that that's weak not to have a position and blah, 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 but it's no, actually, maybe it's just better just to kind of be a part of things and, I don't know.
Right. And I was saying, Ronnie, we talk about Ronnie.
Yes.
He really pisses us off to our core, like Bill Cleveland says. because he's so spirit. It's like
Totally.
the spirituality. It's at a level where I'm sitting here thinking, because I really think I'm doing good, and then I start to see how he's walking through life, and it's like, oh, I got so far to go, and I get scared about it, Chris, because
Yeah.
like you talk to your mother every Friday. I send those meetings out every
Hmm.
single day
Yes,
since the
you.
start of the pandemic. I've been sending those meetings out. Send them out early today so that I can do this. And it's like I'm gonna stop doing what I'm doing. I will say sometimes I sit around and think, how long can I do this? And then I think, how long was I out?
Yeah.
No, and am I willing to take that chance? And today I'm more willing to help people than to take that chance. And some of the times I think it may even hurt me a little bit because like what Ralph talks about, the more God, less Ralph, right thing. And I always think about the more God, less Reggie. And I try to be careful. Like it would seem to me, I watch how like some of our really gifted speakers are, and I'm not saying anything bad about them, but I'm saying about me. Could I possibly stand all that adulation that I see them get and all the, and it's like, man, there are times that and if there's anybody on here that I've turned down when they want me to speak or put them back a little bit, 'cause I always say, you don't need to hear from me any more than once a year, because, and that's not anything about you. That's about me because I always want to understand that my role here is to help God's kids, period.
Yeah.
That's it. That's it. And I really, really, really want to stick, I really believe in that and stick with that. And I don't know, man. I think I have a really good relationship with God. Now, a lot of that's due to my mom, though, too.
Mm.
And I've been lucky. I've been blessed with that. There's very few people, it's to have the head start of Marie is like almost like an unfair advantage. I needed every bit of that advantage because I think she prayed me back in.
Yeah.
And I know that this is not about her. This is us talking about God, but I can't talk about that without talking about her, the most
Yeah.
spiritual person I've ever known. Probably that I ever will. I don't know. You got anything else, Christy?
No. Yeah, no, it's just so powerful to think about because, it's so easy to not think about God and think of like I'm keeping myself sober. I'm going to meetings. Like those management tools, and
Right.
to forget like the big thing. Okay, it's like, okay, God, what would you have me do? You know? Because I never asked God that for a long time, for decades. So,
That big question. And the other one, where's God in
right.
where's God in that? And those are, those are really, 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 cause I've got to I want to be so careful to be out, and sometimes it's so hard.
Right.
And the good news is the way we do it, I got called Chris and I run my mouth and say, I'll talk crazy to Chris. Chris talk crazy to me. And
Uh-huh.
then eventually somewhere in there, we say, we know, you know, and I think that that's because when we're talking together, God is,
Right. Yes.
God is there. Anyway,
Even with the crazy talk, I'm going to say.
especially with the crazy talk. Anyway, that's all I got. You got anything else?
No, man, I love you, Reggie.
Love you too. Thank you, Raquel. Love you. Thank you guys for allowing us to share.
No, you're not done yet, Reggie and Chris. First of all, I have to begin with Chris. Nice to meet you, Chris. I'm officially blown away. Really, uh, it's just, I'll get back to you in a moment. And I hope most of you felt what I felt throughout this meeting. I really got into the vortex of this. It was such a beautiful conversation. And Reggie again did what I love that you always do. When you keep it so freaking real, that's what I love about you. I mean, I wanted to interrupt you both and say, officially, you are my favorite white brother, but I couldn't do that. No, I'm joking. But, cause Ron and Ralph are here. It doesn't matter, right? But I have to tell you, Reggie, I love when you were talking about that whole idea of fuck God, you know, I don't want to have anything to do with this. And most of the fact that you said that most of your childhood, the whole idea of getting close to God was out of fear. What an important thing really to talk about, you know, because I agree. Sometimes we hear people talk about all this love and all this color and you're like, what the hell? Why am I being left behind? Because I don't feel any of this. Right. So I want, if you maybe later expand a little bit upon that and how is it different today? That was my question to you. And then I have a question for Chris, which was, you know, 23 years into this, and then that whole spiritual idea finally came in. And it seemed to me when I heard you that there was no time wasted, that it came mature and nice, because this whole idea of neutrality, it was just like, I don't know, I got goosebumps. It's like God did his thing, whether you acknowledge it or not, because I don't think I can get into 2 months into just being about neutral and doing, you know. But I want to talk about this idea of self-reliance and how does that affect you today with your relationship with God. So first I'll hear from Reggie, then I'll hear from Chris, and then somebody send me some questions in the chat. No need for that. Raise your hand, come on over, and you can actually let us hear your voice and ask the questions yourself. Go ahead, Reggie.
Well, Raquel, I have to admit that I went straight into marriage mode when you start talking. I don't know why I treated you like my ex-wife. I didn't listen to a word you said, so can you repeat the question?
Did you hear him? Did
I
you hear him?
know.
I went straight into marriage mode. I didn't hear a word you said.
I did hear that. I hear. You mute yourself, Hannah, please. That was very funny. I know my husband goes through the same. It's paka, 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 paka. How about you, Chris? Did you hear anything I said?
Yeah, the self,
you.
well, to be fair to Reggie, my question was second. But you do have this amazing ability to do it. And I think he's listening to me. This is the thing that's so really profound about that. Anyways, that's a different skill I don't yet have. Well, or maybe a little bit, but yeah, no, I fight with self-reliance all the time. I wish, you know, like, no, I really wish I would just, you know, just like with sobriety, you know, I didn't come on in and then everything just like went up. I mean, a lot of the outside stuff did, like, I wasn't yellow anymore. Excellent. You know, like I physically got better, and the mental stuff has taken a very long time because I am very, very sick, and I love self-reliance. It protected me, you know, as one of my survival skills. And, but there's gonna always come that point where it can kill me because I don't always reach out when I am hurting so bad. I don't always connect with people, you know, and, so yeah, I think the thing that helps me the most with that is, talking to my sponsees or listening to my sponsees and be like, oh, because I see self-reliance, like what's up. And then I'm reminded, oh yeah, and how is that working out for you right now? You know? So I think that that's really where I get checked with that. Yeah, still a struggle.
Thank you, Chris. Reggie, your question was about fear. Your question was about fear. You did mention that one of the motivators in the beginning to get close to God was fear. And how did that change now? And what is your motivation now? Guys, you can raise your hand. The floor is open.
Well, when I came back, it was all different. I had a level of desperation. It's like God You know what, Raquel? Since I came back after those 16 years, there's been very little fear. I'll talk about the desperation, and I'm not going to go back to what I'm doing, but it's not a fear of going back to what I'm doing. I believe that I got touched, and that obsession just got removed from me. And what I started doing when I came back, I just started doing everything that was placed in front of me. And God just started laying things out for me and made it extremely easy. I've had it really easy. Immediately when I went to Never Too Early, this guy named Ronald had this guy named Angel take me to one meeting. And for 2 straight years, he took me to a meeting every single night. You know, there were things like that. Everything's just been easy. There's been no room for fear. The biggest fear I've had is hurting people that I sponsor, that I work with. And that's because I don't want to hurt another human being. And so I really worry. I really worry about messing with their sobriety or messing them up. That's the only place to have any fear.
Thank you, Reggie. Thank you, Chris. Bobby, go ahead, unmute yourself. You had a question?
Yeah, I do. I tried to put it in the chat. I can't do it. And then I took my hand down because I saw Ralph raise his hand after me, and I'm like, oh no. This is the same as like when I first came into AA in 94, and this is the biggest thing that with God. I don't have a problem with God, but I have a problem with if we're beyond human aid, why do I need humans to tell me if my messages that I believe I get from God are real or delusional?
Professor Chris or Reggie, you want to answer that?
Oh man, I think you got to interpret those messages yourself, friend.
Or better yet, make sure you bring somebody else in on those questions.
Get a second pair of eyes on the sitch.
Yeah, have somebody. Yeah, because I really don't. I usually, when God's voice starts sounding like mine in my head, then I usually know I'm in trouble. You know, and one of the barometers that I've used since I've made it back, like I said, I always look for where's God in that. But more importantly, am I invested in the outcome? It's not about what I'm doing, but am I saying that I need it to come out a certain way to be right? And if I need it to come out a certain way to be right, then it's usually Reggie's will.
Thank you. Lavelle, go ahead, unmute yourself.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you guys might be in this wonderful universe. My name is Bill Bashad Johnson, senior. I'm an alcoholic. And I have a question for Dr. Finley and Uncle Reggie. I'm going to ask Dr. Finley first. I've really fell in love with her, especially after being at State Line, and I was sitting somewhere else, and I said, well, I'm up there with the cool kids. And she said, F that, we are the cool kids, right? So my first question to you is and I love when people gain accolades, and I like to celebrate them here, and people talk about that. But my question to you is, how do you get on the other side of what you just talked about? Because I'm that one that does that. I need help. I need guidance. I need people to be around, but I'll yell out that I need help, but I'll stay distant, right? So that's the question to you. How do you get on the other side of that? And then the question to you, Uncle Reggie, specifically, when you came back, how did you get past the anger with God for the death of your angel?
Beautiful question.
Chris.
You know, I had to have my ass super handed to me in order to really want to take any of that help, because I hadn't taken that help before, right? Or I'd done some of the things, like I'd done inventory, started doing some of the stuff, but I didn't really have that deep belief until I knew I had to have it or I was going to die. like literally die. And I did. I died this other death, and now I'm, and now I'm living another life. I feel like I've had so many different surrenders in sobriety. Um, and just because like I had to see very clearly that my way of thinking, my way of behaving got me to the very place I was, and I did not want to be there anymore. And I did not have a way out of that, period. So that's really what it took. There was no other options. That's what it felt like.
Mm. Interesting. That kind of feeds into my answer as well. I always like to talk about putting God on the fourth step, and I realized, and it made me realize that God wasn't to blame for things that happened to my daughter, but what really happened before I even made it back. And I remember sitting in a garage, in my mom's garage, and in there, and one day it just came to me. I'm sitting in there, and I'm getting loaded, and I realized absolutely nobody is responsible for me getting loaded. That no matter what anybody in this world has ever done to me, no matter what happened to my baby, no matter what happened to me, no matter anything on the outside, nobody ever like stuck a bottle in my mouth or stuck a pipe in my mouth and put dope on it and lit it. I did all. No matter what happened on the others. So I think that in shorthand, what it came to was that I took responsibility. And for once, I took responsibility for all of my reactions. See, the actions that happened were bad, but the problems were bad, but my solutions were worse. And so when I put God on that fourth step, I think I was prepared to see things in a different way. It's like I said, that thing about seeing the world differently.
Thank you. Mr. Ralph, go ahead. Oh, you unmute yourself, please, Ralph.
My name is Ralph White. I'm an alcoholic. And this was one of my favorite meetings.
Mm-hmm.
It's been a lot of people that come on and, sometimes, and it's not at any people, but this format, sometimes it's pretentious. You guys you just did something for me. You lit me up, both of you. So, and in that spirit, because we do a lot of self-critical and now and looking at ourselves, but I'm going to ask both of you, since you both talked about being transformed and what has happened, give me 3 things about yourself that now you like about yourself or you're grateful for. 3 things, each one of you.
Chris?
Oh man, I was hoping you would start that one. I mean, it's kind of funny. It's that thing where it's like all the things the hateful things that kind of got me to that place, right? The fact that I'm like strong, or, the fact that I'm, all the things I think that got me in the place are the things I'm grateful for, because I also know that without them, I would have just, I would have just kept going along the way I was, because it was working for me in a lot of ways,
Give me 3, doctor.
Whew, okay. See, I know I'm really avoiding this.
You can grade your own paper. I know that's not something we normally do.
I know. I actually like the fact that I'm helpful, even though I've had to go to another 12-step program about the levels of my help. So I do like that I'm strong, and that I can really laugh at myself now and my crazy ridiculousness. So thanks, Ralph. And thanks, Lavelle, for that question before.
What do I like? I like that I send those meetings out every day, that I'm reliable, that I know that every single day maybe help somebody find a meeting. Somebody might be looking for a meeting that day, somebody new or whatever. That's what I do. I think is the best that I've done. I like that I keep my word, that if I say I'm going to do something, I'm going to do it. And I like that pretty much, like as far as my family is concerned, or people that, that they know that if they call me and ask me for something, for whatever, that it's done.
Yeah.
Mm.
Yep.
Thank you. Thank you. Anna, go ahead. Unmute yourself.
I can't believe I was with somebody else who was sober when I accidentally unmuted myself, and I'm so spazzy, and I was being so careful not to touch the mute, and I did it anyway. But it was so funny, Reggie, when you said that. So I'm Anna. I happen to be an alcoholic. I happen to be developing an amazing relationship with my higher power, which I didn't have until I came in here 18 months ago, almost. In a week, I'll have 18 months sober. But my question for you both it's so perfect that I accidentally unmuted myself. And thank you so much for hosting this. You're the most marvelous host. And Raquel, right? That's how you pronounce it. Okay. Sorry. But my question for both of you, it's funny that the stories of your trajectories kept making me think, do you guys have I think it was because Reggie said something about meditation, like you were like, it seemed silly to you or something. And I wondered, do you both meditate daily? I'm struggling with meditation, and I think it's my anxiety. I've always been anxious, but now I love that I'm trying to get in touch with a higher power, and I'm really trying to give up I take my power back like constantly. It's like whiplash. And I'm wondering, I get a lot from meditation, but I'm trying to figure out how to shut my voice off. And I was actually specifically curious how each of you guys meditate and if it's daily. Maybe that's too nosy. I don't know. I'm curious.
No, you're good, Anna. They'll answer you
Okay.
in a moment. Nothing is nosy here. Go ahead.
Doctor?
Well, Reggie laughs at me because I actually meditate a lot. Like I do over an hour of reading and writing every morning. I take an hour and a half like meditation walk, and I am flipping off people on the, when I'm on my meditation who are getting in my way, who are too slow. It's just, anyways. So, but our friend Darren, Darren P talks about this idea about, meditating for a minute, and God's like, look at that good little trier, and that's good enough. You know what I mean? But for me, like I find I need a lot of reflection. But I'm not saying it's good, and I'm still a disaster, and that's how much I do it. So.
And Anna, you're not the only one who does not do the very best you can at this. Here's what I am good at. I pray every day, and I pray really well. That much before I even get out the bed, I pray. I make sure of that because it's either God's day or my day. So I pray all the time. When I get here, I try to meditate a little bit. I do a little bit. I'm not great at meditation. I've been talking to people like Bill Cleveland and what's our other friend's name, Christy?
J.S.
Jay. Yeah, Jay and Bill, and they try to help me. Oh, man, I need a lot of help. I'm not that great at it, but here's what I do. I seek it, and I try it as best that I can, and I do pray every day. I don't meditate every day. I don't get it in every day, but I get some in. Pretty much 5 out of 7 days.
Thank you. Well, guys, we can stop the recording. Karen, thank you so much. I am actually really so grateful